So this evening we're going to hear from some of our current students about what it's like for them to move to Manchester to study. So I'm just going to ask each of you guys to introduce yourself and let everybody know what course you guys are on. So if I start with Matt, would you like to introduce yourself, what course you're on, and where you've actually moved from?
Hi, my name's Matt. I'm studying graphic design. I'm in my second year and I'm originally from Newcastle.
Brilliant. William?
Hi, I'm William. I'm a second year foundation degree student doing computer network security. I originally moved from Boston, Lincolnshire.
Brilliant. Nella?
Hiya, I'm Nella. I'm an HND animation and motion graphics student, and I originally moved from Spain.
And Taha?
Hi, my name is Taha Nasir. I am currently an access course to medicine, dentistry, and pharmacy course student, and I moved from Pakistan in 2019.
Brilliant. Lovely to meet you all, and thanks for joining us this evening. So we're just going to go straight in with this. So like I said, if you do have any questions, you can pop them in the Q&A box, but we'll be asking some as well ourselves. So Nella, I might come to you first. How did you find people to live with?
Well, I went around looking for halls of residence firstly, so I was looking in like the centre, so that was actually, it was easy to find people to live with. Everyone's like applying to be there in those centre halls, and it's kind of potluck to end up with who you're with. It's interesting to actually, once you're in there, to find like who are the friends you're going to be around, and like whether you get on with the people you're actually in the flat with, or how you get to know people in like surrounding buildings. And then when I moved out of halls, I found friends. So I got a friend and my partner. We decided to move in together. So that's kind of what I did.
Brilliant. And William, sorry, not William, Matt, am I able to ask you about how you found people to live with as well?
I mean, mine's kind of similar. I moved into student halls, and we could decide if we were around here, like if we knew someone moving in, like we could decide to be with them. But it was mainly just you ended up with who you ended up with. But it was at least good in terms of they put us on like a WhatsApp group and things like that, so you could at least see and get to know who you're moving in with beforehand. So it was still pretty good, even though it was kind of random people. It was good. It was a good way to get to know people.
Yeah, thrown in at the deep end a little bit.
Yeah.
No, that's all good. So I guess kind of going on from that, obviously some of you had a bit more choice in where you've chosen to live, and kind of some of you it's a bit of a different story. But if I come back to you, Nella, what did you look for when choosing where to live in terms of like what kind of accommodation you wanted to choose? Obviously you said you're initially were in student halls, but now you're in a house, so how's that kind of differed?
Well, I remember when I was looking at student halls, I would get sort of distracted by like pictures of rooms. I always wanted to know what the rooms look like, and in like retrospect, I look back and think probably I should focus on like the communal space as well, the kitchen, and what kind of facilities there are. But yeah, I always wanted to check that there was like space to work, a good actual desk and chair, and it's a shame you can't like go in and test the beds, but like quality of mattresses, you suddenly realize that sleep is important once you get there. But yeah, I was often just like looking at how sort of clean and neat it looks, and it's like, does it look like it's going to work? Does it look like everything's actually going to function properly once you're there? And yeah, and then once we like decided we were trying to get an actual house or like somewhere to rent ourselves, we were looking at sort of space. We wanted a bit more space. We wanted a bit of a garden or something like that, but it's difficult to find that kind of thing. So we just tried to find something which had like an actual sitting room with sofas. That was nice, because that's something in student halls, there is like communal space, but sofas are famously uncomfortable wherever you are. things like that. So a bit more living area was what we looked for when we moved house.
Yeah.
Did you get help in sort of finding, you know, where how did you know where you needed to go and look, the sort of areas?
Well, I was looking for places that were near my campus, so I'm in Fielden. So I was fairly lucky with the halls. I had quite a direct bus route down to Fielden. And so when we looked for a house, I wanted to be in the similar area. Like I didn't want to be too far from halls because I already knew the area. So that's kind of how I chose it. But yeah, I got used to like looking up bus routes all the time to see how I would get to everywhere.
So you sort of have a general idea of the area that you'd like to go and live in.
Yeah. It also one of the things we were looking at houses, and I didn't realize until like estate agents started saying to me, but they would point out what kinds of people lived in the area. So whether it was a student area or it was like not student, and sometimes they want to say it's not studenty so that it's quieter, because like it depends who's coming to live there. But they would point out if it is studenty, then it's a little like nearer like lots of food places, shopping places, all that kind of stuff. So it depends like what you're looking for.
Wow.
Matt, would you say that's a similar experience for you?
Yeah, when it came actually in terms of looking, I just did a lot of Googling and things like that. UCEN's affiliated with, I think it's Student Home Finder. Yeah, that was quite useful in terms of trying to find a place. I essentially just did the same as now, just look around the bedrooms, things like that. Had a look at the surrounding areas. Google Street View was actually really useful, just kind of exploring the area. Just kind of, I even did like the route from like my place up to my campus, like just on Street View going along. That was quite useful in terms of just learning where things are. I was kind of doing that when I wasn't even in Manchester. I had no idea where I'd go or anything like that. So yeah.
Get a bit of a feel for the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And I guess kind of an extension of that is then very much like, I guess, how did you make that final decision? Was it the couch at the end of the day? Or was it, I guess obviously one of the other concerns and things that students need to think about is like money and budgets and how those different places compare as well. How did that factor in? Nella, if I come back to you.
Yeah, sorry, because I didn't think about that at all, of course. But when I looked at, I tried to compare like the price of the loan of the student halls I was in and the price of the house I was going to rent. So, and also house sharing, obviously really suddenly realized that you can share costs, and it comes out way cheaper than actually student halls, because they'll ask for like as much as they can because they know you're getting student loans. So that was interesting to work out there, because obviously you have bills. So I ended up like asking my parents, asking friends' parents, like what kind of bills are normal, what kind of things am I looking at per month. So I had to work out quite a few things like that. But that was obviously one of the things that limited our choice in looking for a place to live. It had to be cheap enough. So
yeah,
we've had a question actually come through from Danny, and she says, what halls are best near Fielden? She's looking at Victoria Greens. Is there a good bus route from there? Do you know of Victoria Greens?
I think I know roughly where it is, and I think it is near like one of the main roads. So it would be a fairly direct bus route, probably. But it could be a bit longer because I think I was a bit closer. I was on the Curry Mile. That was my halls were, but they weren't great halls. So there is that.
They weren't, or they were great halls?
They weren't very good. Like,
okay.
the actual, like I wouldn't recommend the ones I was actually at. So it could be worth looking at the quality of Victoria Gardens. And,
right, okay.
Yeah, keep that in mind.
She says she's looking at IQ Manchester Gardens.
I've seen.
Have you heard of that?
Around. They look nice, the IQ ones.
I went around and had a look at them like last year, where I was looking for like where to go in my second year, because I didn't have very good luck with my first. halls. IQ's pretty good, yeah, the rooms were pretty nice. It was relatively cheap, I think. It was just, yeah, it seemed like a good deal.
Thanks, guys. Hope that answers your question, Danny.
Yeah, I think
She says thank you.
I think there's some obviously Matt and Nella have given some good advice there about the kind of things to consider that are important. So, you know, those shared spaces, what the kitchen's like, as well as just your bedroom, and what's around it, as well as that travel. And obviously Matt said some really good things about, you know, Google is our savior, thank God for Google. So it's a really good way of finding out what that bus route likely is. But I know pretty much all our campuses are on bus lines and close to either Met stations, so the tram, or the train as well for some of our kind of city ones as well.
Sorry, Alicia's asked a question as well. She just sort of said that she's booked Manchester Student Village. You guys have heard of that at all?
I'm in a different one. I'm in like it's the same company, but it's a different.
Ah, right, okay.
Building. I've had decent experience, at least with the company itself. So that's
Great stuff. They're normally sort of quite similar, aren't they? The same sort of groups. They normally have the similar sort of facilities and things.
Brilliant.
Thanks,
and then
guys.
I guess kind of touching back on what both of you guys are talking about, what's around where you live as well is what have each of you really enjoyed about living in Manchester? And I know it's been a very different year than probably the social ones and outlots into Manchester that we've all probably would have wished for this last year. But if I come to you, maybe William, will you tell us maybe a couple of your favourite spots in Manchester and what you love about living in the city?
Absolutely. At the moment, I currently live opposite the Etihad Stadium, so I'm just round the corner from Openshaw campus where I study. And I absolutely love going for a wander around the Northern Quarter. All around there is all like indie shops and cafes and bars and stuff. And when things are open at the moment, you can go and sit out in the street. They've pedestrianised the area. There's all like little tables that you can go and sit out at. I quite like walking around here and going to New Islington because it's all down by the canal. So you can walk down by the canal and go for a nice little stroll. It's quite nice when it's sunny. Obviously, sometimes in Manchester it rains, so you know,
just sometimes
bring a coat with you. But no, it's quite nice. But to be fair, because the city is so vast and everything, you can just go wandering around it for days. I quite like doing that, like just going for a wander around, seeing what I can find. There's always something new popping up, so you just go and explore.
Yeah. And Nella, if we come to you, because I know obviously you're kind of at Fielden, which is one of our South Manchester campuses, and the same as you, Matt, as well. Do you guys tend to hang out a bit more in South Manchester as well, or head into the city mainly?
I do like heading into the centre, but it is quite busy. I'm not the kind of person who absolutely loves shopping. I do miss it now that it's been taken away from me. But I really like being very near Plattfields Park. So like one of the big ones which actually has like water with loads of birds on it. So it's like ducks and geese and like occasionally swans, which is really cool. Just as someone who I lived quite rurally before I moved to come to uni, and I do miss things like just vast nature, trees and animals. So that's really nice to find, and I like going exploring. Like I'll suddenly find like, oh, there's a park just around the corner that I didn't know anything about, and go see it. So I go to find bits of green. That's what I do.
I would say as a city, Manchester's pretty good for that. They've got quite a lot of green spaces both in the city and kind of as you go out.
Especially around Fielden.
Yeah, it's
really
a very leafy suburb, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about you, Matt? Any favourite spots in Manchester?
Very much similar to what Noah said, like kind of just exploring like the surrounding area. Like I'm kind of in the similar area, just finding new places. I used to constantly just go around Plattfields and just kind of go around different places and find like even just weird things, like there's shops and stuff that's nearby you didn't know about. Just different places to go on walks, like just go on walks to even just the city centre, things like that, just something different.
Yeah, most definitely. And then Taha, if I come to you, obviously you've moved from a different country as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you chose to move to England, and as well why Manchester within England?
Yeah, well, I think it's not easy for everyone to move from somewhere else. So everyone has to do some struggles. I have a dream. My main motive to move into the England is because I have a name to study here. Because I think England is the best place to learn and to study. I have it's just like my dream to study there. That's why I moved UK, and then I find Manchester is the best city for me, and is the best appropriate place for me to study, as my father is also living here. So that's why I moved here. I did not move alone. I came with my whole family. So at the starting, I faced a lot of difficulties or problems, as I came from a different country. Both countries have different rules and regulations regarding the study and other more issues as well. So if I talk about the study criteria of Pakistan and UK is totally different. At the starting, when I came here, I was very happy. I was extremely happy that now I am came here and I will study here like that. So, but when I came here, that someone has told me, when I go somewhere at college, they told me that your qualifications are not recognized. And to be honest, I was just stunned by this news, that what will I do now? I have a lot of dreams. How will I be able to fulfill my dreams then? And then to that moment, I felt that I should go back, because at that time in 2019 in Pakistan, I was studying in the college. I have completed my college qualification and was about to go into the university. And in the same year, I just moved here. So when I came here, apart going, except to going from the university, I have to take my GCSEs level first, which was just like a very, very, very lower level for me. As GCSEs held in UK in the school level. So I have a dream to go into the university. I have a different dreams, but apart from going to the university, I was just dropped down and like, you have to do just GCSEs first, like that. So yeah, it was very challenging for me. The other thing which I faced is about the language. My first language is Urdu. So when I came here, in the UK, there is a language only English. Everyone speaks English. The medium of my language in Pakistan, it was totally English. So I did not face any difficulty in speaking English, but I must say that I'm not a fluent English speaking. I'm not a fluent English speaker. But at the moment, at the past, at that time, I was very shy and my confidence level was so low that even I was not feeling confident at the moment that I can be able to speak or not. So now I am little bit confident that now I can speak. So yeah, I have faced a lot of challenges. Now I'm here. Now I got a place like a Manchester College, and I must say this is the best place for access course studies or any other courses. So I'm really enjoying my study at this college, and hopefully now I will go into the university next year. So yeah, it's really interesting. At the moment, it's really interesting, and I think it's the best decision of my life to move here. So now I'm very happy and satisfied with what I am doing and what will I do in future. Yeah, thank
Brilliant.
you.
Thanks, Taha.
No, thanks.
I think that's it, isn't it? Obviously, everybody's got different challenges, and I think that's probably one of the very big unifying things about moving away to uni and taking that big step as well, isn't it? Is that everybody's kind of, even if you're kind of a mature student who's coming back a bit later in life, you've got different challenges to balance, don't you? So it's definitely a big step, but like you say, it's an important one, especially if you're looking to further your education. If I come back to kind of guys who live a touch closer to home, if we just talk a little bit again about what it's been like taking that step in terms of independence, and like, I know Nelly, you mentioned before about having to work out your bills and manage all those kinds of things, but how have you found it taking that step when it comes to budgeting, cooking, cleaning, managing your study, all the rest? If I come to you, William, first, is that all right?
Yeah, that's cool. So it can be interesting to start off with, because all of a sudden you've got everything to sort out yourself. There's no mum or dad to rely on anymore. So for me, like the biggest issue was just making sure that I had all of the bills organized on time, because when I moved into my flat, I had all of a sudden I had electricity, water, internet, and it was kind of all was like floating about. So organizing them and making sure all the payment dates were together was a great start. But then on top of that, it was just general things like making sure that I'd ordered correct amounts of food on the food shopping, because you know when you're with your family, you cook for your family, but when you're on your own, it's so different to try and organize
Bolognese
portions and
5
stuff.
nights in a row.
Exactly, yeah. So you know it can be a challenge, but it's also interesting to work out, and once you get the hang of it, you know it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. Nella, what about you, Nella?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that I struggled, especially in halls, because I kept, I mean, everyone will be familiar with that bit where it's the end of a term and the next loan hasn't come in yet, and you're running real thin on money. But that was something I did. Like, I tried to do the maths to say that I could spend this much on food every week, or something like that, and I would get too carried away with buying myself nice food, because that was something that was different from moving to like a big city. Was that there was so much choice and so many different things I could try to cook. I could try to order takeout. I could try anything. And yeah, so I learned quite quickly that I'm gonna have to eat normal food that's boring, but it doesn't have to be, instead of just trying all this stuff. So that was one of the learning curves for me, definitely. Oh, and cheese is really expensive. I remember learning that. Why is it so expensive?
Did you kind of club together as a you know, as sort of rooms, you know, did you all sort of club together and in your halls to not everybody, but you know,
do a food shop
did you
jointly?
manage to sort of disperse, yeah,
Some
the costs
things.
sort of out a bit?
I remember because I've been in a couple of different halls, because I was in Liverpool Uni as well at one point, and a few times like I've organised that we can share buying milk and stuff like that, milk, sugar, tea, coffee, those kind of things. And sometimes, like if we go to shops together, like if you get to be good friends with somebody you're living with, then you might go shopping together anyway and say, hey, look, we'll share a packet of these, or like this veg or something, and it helps spread the cost. But it is difficult because everyone has different tastes, especially when they get there. Like they've all had different backgrounds of what they've been eating on the topic of food. So yeah, it's interesting. It's a challenge to get organized with people you don't know like that.
Yeah, I think
yeah,
the life skills are just as much part of the education in many ways, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say that it's one huge learning curve, the whole experience, and you just don't put pressure on yourself to get it straight away. It's something that you pick up as time goes on. I mean, it's still hard these days for me. Like I'm still learning new bits and pieces, like new ways to save money. I started buying washing tablets in bulk, and I never thought I'd get excited over the price of washing tablets. But you know,
amazing what you get excited about, isn't it?
Wait till you buy your first vacuum cleaner.
You just pick these things up along the way.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? And obviously, like uni's a bit of a longer experience in the scheme of things. It's a couple of years, and so you've got that time to work it out, don't you?
I would say it's a safe place to mess up as well. You have got that sort of place where you have friends around you in the same position, and you do have that money coming in next term, even if it's struck at the end. It's a good place to learn.
I think that's it, isn't it? Everybody's all in the same boat, aren't they? You know, everyone's starting uni all at the same time, and you know, you can learn together, I guess. Yeah,
exactly. Learn off each other. Like I had flatmates coming to me going, did you know that the Aldi is so much cheaper and it's just like a slightly further walk? And I go, oh, I didn't even think to check. You know, I've been going to like Sainsbury's or something. It's, you know, so you'd actually learn to compare prices, learning from each other.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And did William, I think you mentioned this earlier, but were there any kind of central places that you found useful to find some of that information?
Yeah, so there's a on Facebook there's a group called Manchester Student Group, and it's just a group full of every student from all over Manchester, any university, any college sort of thing. And people are always posting their different things, like, say, if you needed accommodation, people will be looking for housemates on there. For nights out, there's tickets that get sold on there. There's accommodation reps, people to talk to, help, advice, mental health stuff as well at the moment because of the situation that we're in. Everybody's trying to help each other out, so it's a great place to look for help. But also just the university's like help page is great as well. The internal student services, if you ever need any help, they've got finance help, you know, people you can talk to about different issues that you're experiencing. So there's a lot of places you can look for help.
Yeah. And is there any kind of services that you've used internally that you found particularly helpful, William, or Nala, or Matt as well?
I had, from personal experience, I had an issue with student finance. I didn't get my loan on time, and it really messed me up in terms of what was I going to do to pay rent and stuff. And I spoke to the student hub and spoke to them, and they helped me. They got in touch with student finance for me to find out what had actually gone wrong. And yeah, we managed to resolve the issue in the end, which was fantastic. So I
think that's it. Obviously, the support services are there to support you, but also advocate for you in places where you might need that extra help. And I think there's lots of different things that they can do. There's, you know, council tax exemptions, various different things as well that they can help you put in on extra bursaries that are available both within our kind of own remit as well as externally that you might be up for, and advice on benefits, all kinds of things like that as well. So they're a really great resource, and it's open to use for you guys as well as applicants ahead of time. It's not just open to our current students as well. So if you do need that support, you're able to. If we go back to mental health, would any of you like to talk a bit about, obviously there's the independent side of things in terms of you've got to cook, you've got a budget, you've got all that, but also there's potentially a bit more alone time and a little bit less structure when you're not living in a family kind of home. Is that something that any of you guys kind of have any advice on in terms of managing your mental health while studying and living in student halls?
Yeah, I can talk about it a little bit because I moved to universities after struggling with my mental health bit. So I've always had like I never been sure what to do. So I've had that learning curve as well in terms of like if you're feeling lonely, if you feel on your own or trapped or something, things like that. Which is definitely something that can happen in student halls. You find yourself surrounded by people who are all in the same boat, but you feel on your own occasionally. And it has definitely helped push myself to go out there and actually talk to the people who are in the same boat as me. But I've also used like college services as well, because there was like a counselling service and things like that. So like find those places where you can talk to someone about how you feel, and learning about all those typical things that people suggest, like exercise and going to find nature, looking after animals, go gardening, all these kind of things. Like I would forget that they exist, that I should be doing that, and then I'd finally one day go for a walk and go, oh wow, I can think clearly. I feel so much better. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things where watch yourself. You know, if you feel unhappy, that's like a normal thing, and you should try and do something to fix it.
Yeah,
it happens to everyone.
Yeah, Matt or William, have you got anything to kind of add on how it's kind of sometimes that loneliness or just your mental health can be at uni?
I've found it helps to keep in touch with people, you know, from, you know, where you've originally came from, like your friends and things like that. Like I try and make sure I at least like say call with my friends like every day or whatever. Just kind of make sure we're at least, you know, still communicating, things like that, because it definitely can help if you're feeling isolated or like you've went very far away. You might be, but you've still at least got home at the end of the day.
Yeah, most definitely. And obviously it's been a bit different this year, but how often have you guys managed to travel home, or would you like to in a regular year maybe?
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, I've still been going back to Newcastle every so often. I went at Christmas when they let students travel back. It's definitely very good getting to see everyone again. It's kind of a bit of a nightmare for me going around seeing everyone because my friends are they're in different friend groups and stuff. So it's trying to organise seeing everyone separately and things like that, but it's still just very fun. It's like, I know it's weird because it's going home, but it's almost like a holiday, like a trip away or something like that. And it's quite good.
Yeah. William, what about you?
I'd just say like going home, for me, I went home over Easter, and it's like Matt said, it's like going on holiday. It's a bit of a break from everything that's going on around here. It's like you're leading two separate lives in a way, I guess. It's a break away from the pressures of having to deal with everything by yourself, and it's nice to see family and stuff. At the moment, I've been going home like over the holidays, so I think that's kind of when I've been going home, using the fact that the government has said that students can travel at that time. But usually, if I could, if it was practical to, I'd probably go home once a month. I do miss my mum's Sunday dinners, so yeah, I think as well for that it helps with my mental health to keep checking in regularly with them. Just to reach out every so often, it's good.
Yeah, I think where you've got that opportunity and you can, and obviously within government guidelines, it is a really good thing to be able to have a trip home and have a bit of that reset, I think, as well. Get kind of a bit of that holiday from your student lifestyle, isn't it?
I'd say as well, linking to like mental health, I had issues last year, so I'm actually resitting a year at the moment, because I had mental health issues. One thing I learned from that was speak up to. It's incredibly hard to do so, but speak up to your tutors because they're there to help you through the entire process. And if there's anything that they can do to help, they will. My tutor said to me the one thing that he regretted was I didn't speak up to him sooner, because he'd have been able to put the provisions in place for me to actually be able to get through the year. So definitely, when you can speak up to your tutors, they will help you out.
Yeah, and I think I would say that's one of kind of the key things within our ethos at UCEN Manchester is we are a bit of a smaller provider, and that does mean that you kind of can have those closer relationships with your tutors and the support staff. You're not going to be lost in a big lecture theatre, one of 300 students. That's not kind of our vibe. So I think, they're there for you guys to speak out to. So as hard as it is, and most definitely even as an adult in work and all that, it's still just as hard sometimes to take that first step and admit that you might need a little bit of help, but it's so worthwhile, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd reinforce that my tutors have also been super helpful and that kind of thing. And like, even if all you wanted was a chat, they've always been like really friendly and really supportive. And they've checked in with us as well. Like, once you've said that you might be struggling a little bit, or you just think that it could happen because you have a past of it or anything like that, they'll check in with you. Like, the whole college has had things like, they'll just have someone who comes and says like, "Are you okay? How's it going?" And it gives you that opportunity to speak to someone.
Wow. I think we've got a couple of the questions in the Q&A, Amy, if you want to ask them.
Yes, there are. Yeah, there's some questions which have come through. Somebody, Danny had asked, was it worth buying a bus pass? Is there anybody wants to answer that?
The year before last, yes, definitely. Obviously, I'm glad I didn't invest in one this year because I haven't had to go anywhere. But yeah, I found it really helpful to have that. I think it was a Stagecoach one that I got, and yeah, I worked it out as well and everything, because if you're going to college like 3 or 4 days a week, you can work out the journey, and you could be spending £5 a day, or it works out to be much cheaper. It is a lump sum to spend. It's a bit scary. You think, why am I spending 200 quid on this tiny little bit of plastic? But your loan has just come in, and usually you can cover it, so it's fine, and it's definitely worth it. Just do the maths.
All comes down to the budgeting. Somebody else has asked, going back to the sort of halls, what sorts of things come standard in most hall rooms?
You'll normally end up with, like, well, if you're in a good one, you'll have a decent desk, place to study, things like that. Kind of, say in the kitchen, you'll get a kettle, things like that. Maybe an ironing board, it depends on the place, things like that. Laundry is 50-50. Sometimes it'll either be, there's like a big company called Circuit Laundry that most of them use. Their prices are a bit much. It kind of adds up. But you might get lucky, you might have a washing machine in your place, but yeah, just things like that. I can't really think, I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine. Danny's asked, is there a lot of social sort of do's that are in the city centre, or do you find them just, you know, what can you do on campus? She's just thinking about socialising and how easy it can be to get back to the you know, accommodation at night time.
So in terms of like actual events with the university, because of how this year's been, there hasn't really been a chance to explore that. But in terms of getting home from nights out, and because obviously there's a lot of nightlife, but in terms of getting home from that, there's a night bus that runs pretty much from the city centre to where most student areas and student accommodation is, and that runs 24 hours a day. So you've got the option to travel via that. Uber runs quite a lot, and that can be quite cheap depending on where you need to go. And the tram runs quite late at night as well, if that's nearby your accommodation. So there's plenty of options of getting home safe at night.
Fab, thank you for that.
Yeah, I guess that probably just raises a few, I think, probably going back to what Matt was saying, but probably good questions to ask when you are looking at specific accommodation providers. You know, what's in your local area, how far away it might be to your closest Aldi or Tesco or whatever it is that you might be, where you are in relation to buses and trams and those kinds of things. But also, if you're feeling like you want to spend most nights in the city, is it better off spending that little bit more and actually locating yourself in a city where you're always closer to home in that sense?
And that kind of links to the bus question as well. Like if you are planning on going on nights out and stuff, definitely worth having a look at the Stagecoach bus pass for students, because it is worth it, because you pay that one lump sum and that's it, your travel for the student term, the student year. So
that's a good point.
Brilliant, thank you for that, William. Danny's also asked, do you tend to mix with sort of students from other universities, or do you just sort of socialise? I know it obviously last year was very different, but do you sort of socialise just with other UCEN students, or when you're out in Manchester, do you just get to know other people from other universities?
My halls was primarily MMU and the University of Manchester, so I hardly met anyone from the college in my halls. So I made a bunch of friends who were going to these other universities as well, and yeah, it didn't matter at the time. You know, everyone's doing different courses anyway, so everyone's just asking about like what everyone's doing. It doesn't really matter where they go. So you just like yeah, I had mixed friends. You know, I got to know the people in my class in Manchester College and a few people like around the same campus, but if you're living with people from different places, then you get to know them as well.
Everyone's very friendly in Manchester, aren't they? I'm not sure if anybody will be able to help with this one. Elise is just saying she's looking to study at UCEN Manchester for a one-year course. There aren't actually any halls of residence sort of on site, Elise, but does anybody know if there's any sort of quite sort of close by to UCEN Manchester?
That's about 5 minutes from Piccadilly, so there's quite a lot of student stuff in the city. I think towards Deansgate there's quite a bit as well, isn't there, with new stuff. I know that. But again, it's just a case of if you want to live in the city right next to where you're studying, or if you're happy to kind of travel in a little bit further, because like Fallowfield's about 10 minutes or so, isn't it, Nella? That's quite a big student area, for example, anyway.
Yeah, there's lots of accommodation around Fallowfield, so, and that would be a direct bus journey into the centre. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. I think we've answered all the questions now. Everyone says thank you very much for answering all those questions.
Perfect.
So,
well,
yeah.
I guess with that, and just thank you guys all again for joining us, and thank you Matt, William, Nella and Taha. It's been really helpful to have you guys on and answering these student questions. Obviously moving away and moving to a different city and moving out from the family home and those kinds of things can be a pretty daunting experience. So I think having some of those answers, and I think also you've kind of developed a bit of like a mental checklist of things that are worth asking about as well when you are going about looking for that individual accommodation that's right for you as well. So thank you very much all for your advice. So thanks everybody for joining our live panel discussion. We do have more